this video, I want to cover the Meshmix tool here right at the top. This is the tool that kind of started Meshmixer in the beginning. This was why it was made, so that you can add things like append objects onto other STL files. Unfortunately, I threw away a lot of those that come with the software. There's arms and legs and wings and heads and things like that that come in the software. And if you haven't thrown them away, you can play around with those to get an idea on what is there. I want to just show you some of the tools, options that are out there. These are just the primitives, and these are used a lot when you're just building stuff, okay? Now, I want to show you that if you take one of these objects and drag it and you let it drop right on top of another STL file, it sticks it to that STL file, so that as you drag it around, you can see it stuck to the surface, okay? I honestly don't see much value in that myself. These are the tools, though, that you can change the size of it by grabbing on this little arrow. You can rotate it, which you can't really tell that that's rotating because it's not like it's the same shape. And then grabbing the center part is what allows you to drag it around. And then if you click on that little circle right there, you get a different tool. And what this does is, oh, you know what, it's not doing it with this one. I'll show you with a different one that I was messing around with. Miscellaneous here. Is that the one I wanted to show you with? No, I wanted to show you with a letter. So if I drag this E onto the surface, okay, let me back up. So there are what are called open parts and closed parts, and solid parts, I should say. And if you look at like a tooth like this, this is a solid part, which means there's no open boundary on it, and they act differently. And so with an open boundary, when you pull that on, put it on the wrong way, but with this one you can see what I mean by rotate, okay? And if you click on this, you can, yeah, so this apparently does a better job in the open part. So I'm going to go ahead. Oh, while I have you here, I'll just show you right here. There's different options. If you choose append to the mesh, it will leave this object here in a state where the two are combined together, which means you can separate them apart. If you choose create new object, it leaves it there, but it doesn't combine them. So it'll show up in the object browser as two separate objects. If you leave the Boolean union, what will happen is everything inside will go away, and then it'll kind of blend the two together right here so that the rabbit has this little bulge, but nothing will be left in the inside. And then the Boolean subtract gets rid of this and leaves this. So for example, I'll show you what I mean by that. So see how it makes like an imprint into it. I'm going to hit undo, and then Boolean union is going to keep this, but it's going to take the inside out like that. And then we'll create a new object, just makes it so they're two separate objects. And if you were to open the object browser, you can see that they're two separate objects. And then if we undo and do append to mesh, notice that it only has one object, but it's still there. So if you click select and expand to connected, you can always separate those, and now they're two different objects. Okay, so I'm going to delete this one, back to our bunny. All right, so then that's closed, that's solid parts. Okay, so if you come along and go into the letters right here and drag one of these on, notice here we've got, okay, let me hit cancel. Let me show you. If I drag this out here onto the side, see how there's one side that's open, whereas, let's go ahead and okay, let's go into, say, let's see, here's a pin. All right, and see how this is not open at all. Okay, and notice that instead of, if I take a solid part and I drag it onto an object, it gets stuck to it like this. Whereas if I drag it out here into the scene behind, it just plops it down like a STL file that I can manipulate and move around just like any other STL file. Okay, but if I take one of these open parts and I put it on the back of that bunny, notice that it's trying to connect that E, and notice also how it follows the curve of that rabbit, which is interesting, of course. Same thing, I can change the size of it, I can move it around, and I can rotate it. But then I want to show you these other two things that it will do. If I click on this, notice there's two things. There's this guy here and this guy here. This one kind of twists it. See how it's kind of twisting? Okay, and you can go in either direction. But that's what that does, is it kind of takes the top surface and it starts to turn it, and you can see everything below. And there's settings throughout here that you can change. I honestly don't ever use the settings. I rarely use this feature here. And then this one here, you can see it's taking that green surface, and you can see that sphere that shows up. It's kind of letting you take the surface and point it in any direction that you want. Okay, so that gives you kind of an idea. One recent use that I found for this is making this video in the time of the coronavirus stuff, and somebody is asking me for some help on using Meshmixer for a mask. And so I went in and made some tools, mask tools, and one of them was a clip. And you can see right here, this made it nice to be able to add a clip. So for example, what I had figured is that somebody could take a mask like this, okay, and put it onto a scan face, do a Boolean difference here, but then once the Boolean difference was done, then go in and start adding the clips. So you can sit here and you can turn it and you can move it. You could scale it if you wanted to, and then once you find it where you want, you attach it. And notice when it attached, oh, you can't see right here, but if I were to delete a big section right here, you'd notice that that is kind of perfectly union right onto the surface, and notice how it kind of bends with the surface, so it creates a nice seal. So there's sometimes you're going to find some uses for some of these things, but that's kind of the idea. And real quick, I just wanted to show you that if you want to make one of these objects, it's fairly easy to do. Let's do this. Let's get rid of all this. I'm going to bring in a sphere, and I'm going to use the plane cut. Okay, I'm going to click right down here, and notice right here that it's trying to fill. I'm going to say no fill. So now I have an open object, and I can hit, or let's real quick modify it just slightly. Let's go and pull in one direction, just so we have one side that's not a perfect sphere. Okay, now I'm going to hit Control A for select all, and right here we're going to say convert to an open part. Okay, and then normally I just leave this alone and I hit accept. And then let's do this. Object browser, delete, and let's bring in a sphere again. And let's see, let's come in to surfaces, stencil, and let's just modify it a little bit from, because you know there already is a sphere. All right, we'll just make ourselves a new part like this. All right, escape, Control A, and then on this one, we're going to convert this to a solid part. All right, and then accept. All right, so clear selection. So now let's object browser again, delete, let's bring in a bunny. So we got our bunny, and now when we come into Meshmix, notice that under my parts down here at the bottom, it automatically added those two objects. It took a screenshot of them as well. I don't know why it always cuts off the side of it. But notice that this one has an icon showing that it's open, and this one shows an icon saying that it's solid. So you can drag this off, and you can reproduce that as many times as you want by just dragging it out there. And of course, you can also drag it onto the surface, but then it gets stuck to the surface. Okay, and so I often tell people, because the Christian Brennis tooth library that we use for wax ups, that is done this way. I always tell people, drag it off to the side, then go ahead and bring it over. Okay, but then notice this one, for one, if you drag it off to the side, it just is the same object as it always is. But, oops, cancel. But if you drag it onto the rabbit, then you can see that it's sticking right around the edges there. Okay, and just like I was saying, you can turn it. That's why I added that bulge so you could see it turning. You can change the size. You can drag it over here and position it where you want it to be. Okay, and then you hit accept, and it's going to add it on there. This one changes the size. This one I haven't really figured out. Offset's pretty easy. If you, oops, wrong one. If you go up, it creates an offset. Bold kind of makes it kind of balloon out towards the top, and then smooth tends to oh, wrong one. That's bulge. See how smooth? It doesn't seem to do much other than it smooth this off. And then some of these other ones, let's see, what is that? D scale. Yeah, some of these just don't seem to change much. That's some fall off thing. And then this here kind of affects the base part, like how well it comes on there. So like I said, I don't know all those different things. Optimize kind of does some weird things that don't look very optimal. And then flip normally flips it around. This didn't do anything though. I've seen it flip it so like this side goes to this side. For example, here I'll hit accept. If I went into our letters and drag the E over here, a flip flips the letter around. Okay, so let's see if optimize does. No, see optimize, I read about it once, but so that is the idea with the Meshmix is to be able to take like a library and make something of it. That's how I made the Christian Brennis libraries, is I would set the teeth and then select all, hit convert to part. This here, I made this that went with the library. I don't know if anybody ever really notices that it's there, but this used some of the stuff we talked about. I basically took a plane and made this nice little thing, Tooth Designs by Christian Brennis, plug-in organized by me, Nate Farley. But you can see right here, this was just a flat plane that I was able to come in under the letters, and I was able to drag letters onto here, and you can, you know, I just kind of put them all in order and spelled that out that way. So hope that helps you understand the Meshmix tool better, so that one, you can make your own libraries of the things that you use most. You can see right here, I do this all the time. This is a bunch of parts used when I'm doing advanced surgical guides. This is two options I have for articulators. This one's a virtual articulator my son designed. This one here is basically mounting plates that I could stick a washer in them and they would snap onto my articulator. And then I already said I made this one for the masks. So hopefully that can get your creative juices going. You can, and then over time, as you find that you're doing something over and over and over again, go ahead and just make it into a part so that you can more quickly get back to that mesh.